Sharing my story has only allowed me to gain empathy for others in the LGBTQ community.
This week, a journalist who's taking representation and visibility to new heights and followers too. Megan Mitchell, thank you so much for joining me on Truth Be Told.
I am so happy to be here. Let's do this.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, you're a journalist and a TikToker. Did you ever imagine those two things being intertwined together?
I think that that's been the weirdest part about all this is that within the last 3 years, people would be like in the grocery store, maybe an older boomer type generational person, oh, watch you on the news. Now it's like 16-year-olds being like, I watch you on TikTok. And I'm like, what is going on? Like totally different demographic, but I'm here for it.
I love it. I love it. The video that caught my eye recently was your viral video showing the evolution of what you've worn on air in relationship to living more openly and being yourself. Tell me a little bit about that evolution.
Yeah, and I feel like in the news business, there's these rigid gender role lines that we have, right? Because you see the male and the female, the man and the woman that are coming into your home, into your living room, and you expect them to look a certain way. And I think that goes even farther in local news, right? As opposed to national news where you're living in New York or LA or whatever, and it's just a little bit more progressive and people don't necessarily feel like, oh, you have to be wearing this type of thing. And so when I first started, I was like, well, I want, to eventually make it up the ranks. So I want to do what I think I should be doing, which is wearing these like tight dresses, big, bold jewelry. And the joke was among my friends and I that like my closet was way too big because my off-air clothes were all tomboy clothes and button-ups, and then my on-air gear was a totally different wardrobe. Wow. And it was like all dresses.
A completely different person.
Completely different person. I know. So I finally had to mend them, to mold the two together, I guess is the best way to put it. And I recognize that like I'm not someone who is, super masc, but I'm also not someone who's super femme. And my parents, who initially struggled pretty hard with my sexuality for quite a few years, now admit to this day, they're like, yeah, Meg, we just thought of you as just in the middle, like you. And I was like, that's just what I've always been. And so to finally get the courage to just say, okay, I'm not going to wear this dress. I'm going to wear like a pantsuit today, which you would think is normalized, right? Because in politics, you see women wearing a pantsuit, but a lot of the times that's to almost emulate what constituents would want, right? Because they're used to men being in politics. So it's more of like we're going to kind of try and fit the male mold. But mine was more like, oh, we expect to see a man and a female. And to have me not wearing a dress was just like, it was a little bit more taboo, if you will, in Ohio and Texas and North Dakota.
Absolutely. Was there a moment where you feel like you cracked that code and balance between look good, feel good, and being able to exude who you were in what you were wearing?
I feel like it was definitely a process. And I think one of the things I've recognized in my journey, if you will, is that once I really engaged in a meaningful way with the LGBTQ community, I started becoming more myself. And so in North Dakota, we just didn't have a large LGBTQ population. I mean, it is by a Gallup poll in 2013, which I was there in 2014, the least gay people per capita. Yeah. And so Pride was 50 people on a riverboat down the Missouri River. And to finally go to Cincinnati, Ohio, and get so embedded in that LGBTQ community, it really unlocked in me the courage and confidence to just unabashedly do the thing.
Do you feel like kind of in that siloed space that people found you and you were able to find chosen family? You were that beacon for other people too, right?
Well, that's what's so weird about TikTok is I think a lot of people think, wow, she's this, public figure in her community. and she is inspiring, people to kind of wear what they want to wear in a professional setting, which, like, sure, that is true. But I think there's so much more to that, because sometimes I will be self-conscious about certain choices that I make. I have little kind of, they're not like bolo ties, but just like little jewelry that's more masculine. I'll wear it on air and I'll be like, I think it looks really cool, but I'm still a little nervous about wearing it. I'll post it to TikTok. And then that type of mutual excitement, I have followers that will comment and be like, I'm obsessed with that. Where'd you get it? I'm like, we're just all pumping each other up here and boosting our confidence. Like, this is what it's about,
I love
right?
it.
So it's so much more mutual than I ever would have dreamed.
I love that. Take me back real quick to that first TikTok that really took off for you.
Oh,
Do you remember what it was, and how did that feel in that moment?
yeah. And I had been posting for a couple months because the pandemic had just struck. So we were all doing nothing but scrolling on TikTok, right? And so I went home. I was actually supposed to be in Mykonos with my
Oh, no.
friends. And instead, I had to drive home to Connecticut, be with my family. And my brother had just graduated high school at the time. So he's like totally Gen Z. And he's like, Megan, you got to learn these TikTok dances with me. So I did it. And he was the one that kind of put in my head, he was like, I bet if you posted, your undercut, which at the time, half my head was shaved, and like yourself at the news desk, like you could get followers or whatever. And I was like, okay, like, but I just didn't imagine that it would get as many as it did, because I posted kind of like my look, my undercut, and it was a little, are you a friend of Dorothy?
Yes.
Like that phrase
Yes.
is like an indicator. It's like on TikTok for Gen Z, it's, do you listen to Girl in Red, who's a lesbian
Oh my
singer?
gosh, that's incredible.
And
Okay.
I
Okay.
knew the joke. So I was like, when you want to be professional, but show you listen to Girl in Red. And like Gen Z was like, oh my God.
Amazing. Talk about cracking the code.
It's TikTok. Once you understand the algorithm,
It's a
it
wild,
can go
wild
crazy.
place.
It's a wild place.
What helped you push through and to keep sharing more of yourself?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question. I feel like, especially my parents, as I had mentioned earlier, they weren't on board. Like from the beginning, I came out at 19, I was in college, and they were like, no, no, no. We didn't talk about it for years. My mom cried every day for 6 months.
Wow.
My dad would like scream at me on the phone. But then as the years went on, it started getting a little bit easier. Like year by year, they would kind of take away one thing. So like, okay, we're okay with you being gay, but just like, don't dress like a man, Okay, we're okay with you wearing a suit, but just don't post it online for everyone to see.
Yeah.
And so like it was a very slow process, but after about maybe 6 or 7 years, my parents started getting a lot more accepting and affirming of where I was at, and it was almost this like mutual understanding that I could be myself. They saw how I was thriving in Cincinnati in the LGBTQ community there, and that it was not a hindrance to my career or my personal life
Yeah.
at all. If anything, it did the opposite. So when I think about posting something that I'm scared of, all I think about is, can this help a young kid out there, maybe someone who's older than me, whose parents aren't as accepting right now, who's in a relationship or in a marriage that they know might not be true to who they are? Can I allow them to be the most authentic version of themselves? Because I needed that. Because I looked at people on social media and said, they don't seem to be getting in trouble for posting gay content. Like, why can't I? And their content has helped me
Yeah.
heal this relationship with my parents. So if I can do that for anyone else, Tony, I'm going to do it.
Where would you be if you hadn't kind of stepped out in this way? And I can just feel your love and energy through the screen, and really it's just personified. You are living your best life when you can be your fullest self.
Yeah. And I will say really quickly, ditto. I feel your energy and love through the screen, because I feel like we're both in these places where we're like, oh my God, I can totally unabashedly be myself.
100%.
And if I didn't make this step, I don't know where I would be, honestly. And I think creating this TikTok and sharing my story has only allowed me to gain empathy for others in the LGBTQ community, so much so that in the position that I have now at WFAA in Dallas, Texas, my focus is LGBTQ storytelling. And that's not just all of the bills and things going on in the legislature right now in Austin,
Yeah.
but it's also the stories of triumph and of joy, queer and trans joy, that are going on in North Texas. And so the fact that I was able to get a position like this and then have this extra empathy in me to share these stories is like, I can't imagine anything else. This is like what I dreamed of.
Many, many TikToks later, many, many TikToks to come. The Megan who you are today, what would you say is your truth?
My truth is that the more authentic I am, the more successful I get in my career, in my personal life, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I I love my girlfriend and I love my job and and I love my family. So
I love it. I love it. Pure joy.
that's my truth.
I think your
Yeah.
truth too is just pure joy, and we love to see it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
To watch more episodes of Truth Be Told, check us out at Plus Life Media or at pluslifemedia.com. Until next time, be good to yourself and let your truth be told.